before I give opinion about certain product, I need to push it hard for several weeks on the limits, and that's the case with the Moza R21, which is the most powerful and refined DD bass in their ecosystem. You know how impressed I was with the 9Nm Moza R9, which is one of the best basses, around 10Nm, particularly from price point of view, and in my opinion Moza offer the best prices on the sim market, starting with the R5 complete package for $659, which include 2 pedals, steering wheel and 5Nm DD bass, €100 handbrake, formula wheel with all the features including dashboard, and the list goes further. So Moza sent the R21, which I pushed for several hundred hours in the last few weeks, preparing myself for the 12 hours of Bathurst race in the GT3 class and chasing other championships. I feel ready to give my full opinion about it, share my experience with, and compare it to some of the competition I have around in the face of the 23Nm Simagic Alpha Ultimate and the 25Nm Simucube 2 Pro. It is a motor with 21Nm peak torque, which is 2Nm less than the Simagic Alpha Ultimate, 4Nm less than Simucube 2 Pro and DD2, and 1Nm more than DD1 from Fanatec, but after testing so many basses lately, in my opinion those last few extra peak torques are not going to make any big difference in normal use case scenario. For me personally, even the R9 and Simagic Mini have covered my personal needs for everyday driving. But of course, having more is always better, even from psychological point of view. The 262K count per revolution encoder makes it equal with the Alpha Ultimate and 20 times less than the Simucube 2 Pro, which is with 4 million points, but I can't personally detect any difference in terms of precision between those encoders. In their website, Moza claimed that motor is developed by experts in electric motors field in very specific design to ensure smooth force feedback experience without magnetic ripples, and turning the shaft of all different bases, I have to admit, is the only base with almost zero magnetic ripple while they are turned off. That being said, once they are turned off and start creating those high torques and start changing direction of the force feedback, they are all three super smooth. If out of the box they all have their own characteristics, through the settings they all can achieve exactly what I need for my personal like. That means I can feel the texture of the road, all the little anomalies and bumps, dips, cambers through very smooth transition of the magnetic field which push the shaft. Also, I have seen this bass for a while on pictures and videos and for some reason always felt huge in dimensions, but I was pleasantly surprised from the compact design. As you can see, in competition to the Simucube 2 Pro, Alpha Ultimate, even R9 and Cammus is actually very compact. The unique shape is what makes it different from the rest on the market, but I'm not going to comment on the design as that is very subjective topic and it's up to you to decide if you like it or not. The shaft provides power to the Moza wheels through those 3 pins with wireless system inside, which is electrical coil system and inductive coupling, and if you want to find how it works exactly, I strongly suggest to check Hsimracing Garage video where Buddy take it apart and explain everything. All I have to say is the wireless connection never felt in my experience testing all the different bases from Moza the last few months, so that's great work. Speaking of the pit house, the software is very intuitive with little explanation info for each dial and was very easy to find the settings I need to feel the maximum of the road texture and have it smooth enough for pleasant experience. Now, here is where I end up from settings. I found if I turn the power down to 50%, the signal will clip at around 8-9 Nm, and if I have it at max for most of the cars, I can get 17-18 clean peaks of torque. I personally never need that much torque except for fun, but some cars have very weak signal and for me it's easier to tweak the settings in the sim. Maximum wheel speed at 50% feels more natural to me with 300mm wheels and below, and for 320 to 350mm I can go to 60 to 70%. Wheel spring and wheel damper are always off on any of the bases I use, as those are artificial effects which fight against the force feedback information. Keep in mind, those settings make the wheel feel a bit light in the straights, but once I start loading up the tires in the corner, it is much easier to me to feel the edge of the grip and the anomalies of the track. Next, the road sensitivity is the filter, which makes the big difference for the smooth experience, but I personally prefer to keep that at around 6-7, which is a bit rough, but makes the surface effect more pronounced, which I need to understand better the road. Natural inertia 100, wheel friction 10, and for rallies 0, speed depending damping of the equalizer looks like fun settings, but I haven't found something specific which feels better than the stock settings. Another great option here is the hands-off protection. Those powerful motors can be dangerous at high torques, and if some curbs or incident push the wheel out of your hands and get crazy, the software detects the violent movement and stop the shaking without turning off the force feedback. No safety switch needed, even if they offer one. This is something every brand must add to their software. One more very user-friendly part is the firmware updates of the hardware. The app informs immediately if there is new firmware, and if something goes wrong, we can roll back the previous version. Now, let's go back to the driving experience. If we go to their webpage, they promise a lot. The rotor of the R21 is triple staggered slanted pole design, commonly found in electric motor vehicles, and ensures a balanced vibration-free motor. The combination of high copper space factor and triple staggered slanted pole rotor results in a motor that delivers increased torque and dynamic range detail and greatly reduced cogging and torque ripples over traditional sim racing motors. Honestly, I don't know what all that means, but sounds like big promise. In reality, through my hands, I haven't found any advantage over the Simucube 2 Pro and the Alpha Ultimate. At max force, they are pretty much undrivable for me, and I'm not even sure if I can tell the difference between the level of torques between those three bases. In terms of precision, I also can't detect any difference. Now, for years Simucube have been my benchmark for force feedback in terms of speed versus smoothness, and in the settings I use for everyday driving, they feel pretty much the same, even if they use completely different hardware. One have insanely precise encoder, and the other promise a lot with unique motor design, but for me, in terms of force feedback experience point of view, I can't find any advantage at all. Do they under-deliver with that big statement to be better over traditional sim racing motors? Well, it's definitely not better than the Simucube 2, but it's very close, and in the settings I use, I can't see it to be any better, but as I've said, Simucube 2 Pro is my benchmark for years, and being that close in terms of force feedback quality, I have to admit, I'm impressed. When they sent it for test, knowing the original price of $1,099, it was hard to suggest against the competition, but the sim market is getting very competitive place, and with so many options on the high-end side, the reduced price of $1,099 makes it very competitive piece of gear. So, here is my final personal opinion. It is better than the competition? No. There are a few minor differences like mounting points, which in this case are only on the bottom, software experience, ecosystem, but when we set it once on the road, through the force feedback, there won't be much difference if any at all. Also, that motor is very quiet, and in use there is almost zero noise in comparison to my Simucube 2, which is really noisy. It runs also very cool for hours. The build quality looks great too, and if you want to see more of the interior, check the Hsimracing Garage video, which I will share in the description below. The goal of that video is to give you my personal experience in terms of driving, and after hundreds of hours of use and zero problems, I can give my personal approval, and with the new price, I can suggest it as very competitive based on the market at this point in time. If you like the Moza ecosystem and design, the build quality and prices are very competitive.